Welcome back to the Steps of Writing and Writing Like a Pro with me, Mary Harelkin Bishop. This is the second video. So today we are going to talk about step 2. Last time we talked about step 1, which is getting our ideas. We talked about where our ideas came from. We talked about how we keep our ideas. And I asked you to brainstorm and then choose one idea that you wanted to write about. And step 2, we are going to put across 2 or maybe even 3 videos as we work toward fleshing out our stories a little bit. So, what do you think step 2 is about? Step 2 is actually called, for me anyway, thinking and daydreaming. And I love this step of writing, because it's where I get to carry a wonderful daydream around in my head as I'm planning my stories. And so what kind of things do you think we have to think about as we're thinking and daydreaming about our story? I want you to stop the video and make a list of the things you think a writer should think about as they're planning and thinking and daydreaming about their story. So I hope you stopped the video and made a little list. What kind of things do you think a writer needs to think about and daydream about as they're planning their story? Did you write down characters? Because characters are a big part of the story. The writer needs to know all about their main characters. How many are there? What are they? Do they have names? Those are the kinds of things they need to think about. They need to think about the problem of the story. Every story needs at least one problem. A short story would have one problem. A longer story might have 2 or 3 or 4 or even more littler problems and one big problem that the main character is trying to resolve or figure out. The action of the story is really important. What kind of things will happen in your story? Where does your story take place? That's called the setting. In a book like Tunnels of Time and the Time series, the Tunnels of Moose Jaw series, the setting for this book was very important. It had to be Moose Jaw because the tunnels of Moose Jaw are in Moose Jaw. And so these stories had to take place in Moose Jaw. The other part of setting is the time period. And so in this case, Andrea goes back in time to the 1920s. And that was really important too, because these stories couldn't have taken place if Andrea didn't figure out a way to get back in time, or if the stories didn't take place back in time. So setting is often important for some stories, but for other stories, the setting could be anywhere. Another thing that's really important is the beginning of the story. How are you going to start your story so that it draws your reader in? And we'll talk more in detail about that too, but it's just something to be thinking about. What's going to happen in the middle of your story? How are you going to end your story and tie everything up? And the genre or the kind of story is really important too. Are you writing an animal story, a mystery, an adventure, a science fiction? What we call a realistic story, which would be a story that could take place in present day time, in our time, and could be about a boy and girl in our time. So those are all things that we need to think about. Step 2, thinking and daydreaming. So what I'd like you to do is to go away and think about these things, daydream a little bit about them, and keep your idea. And when we come back together next time, we're still going to be on step 2, but I'm just going to show you how my brain works when I'm actually fleshing out a story. And so we'll choose a story and just flesh it out a little bit, and you can see, kind of like look inside my brain and see what's going on. All right, so I want you to keep reading, keep writing, and we'll talk to you soon.